Hello everyone, welcome to this new series where we'll explore different command and control frameworks, see how to install them, how they work, and what additional capabilities they offer to make team engagements easier. In this series, I plan to explore different modern frameworks that are relatively popular, such as Mythic, as you can see on my screen. This is the first one we'll dive in, and maybe Sliver and some other ones. The goal of this series is just to explore each framework and see what benefits they offer, how they differ, and and at the end of exploring each framework, we'll try to build something like infrastructure as code using Ansible and Terraform to deploy those in the cloud easily to make sure you can call back to public IPs in case you need to deploy those for real engagements or just want to practice doing that. So we'll cover this series by looking at the Mythic C2, which is now maintained by SpecterOps, I believe, and offers some robust features and can be easily customized because it's not very much all in one, as you'll see. It's built with these different containers that you can easily replace and deploy anywhere. So let's dive in. In this first video part of exploring Mythic C2, we'll look into installation. Maybe we'll build a simple payload just to keep it short and simple. And then in the future series, we'll dive into how we can make more advanced payloads and how we can customize those, how we can catch those, and talk more about the usage. So let's dive in. So you can just Google Mythic GitHub and you'll find their GitHub page. It's the very first one. And here you'll find all the code and you can go to their documentation, which I have open right here. So yeah, as I mentioned before, talking about infrastructure, how it works, we can see just a bunch of different containers. It has profiles, webhooks. Basically, all these parts of Mythics are containerized that you can easily hook in and it will continue working, which makes it very robust and easily customizable. Let's move on to the installation page. Just gonna be this one. So as always, first you clone the repo. I was playing with it a little bit to make this video shorter, but let's go to my root. I'll do this as well. So first thing first, we just clone the repository. Okay. Let me go to my home profile. To make sure you can install Mythic command control framework, you need to have Docker installed. They're very generous and provide all this .sh bash scripts that you can use to install Docker on your system if it's not already installed. There's one for Kali as well, so you just go into clone repo and can, for example, run this bash script to install it on Kali. I already have Docker and Docker Compose, so I will not be doing that, but you can go ahead and do that. So to use Mythics, according to their documentation, you need this Mythic CLI binary, which is how you interact with the server and do all the different things. So since Mythic is written in Go, you do need to have Go installed. And for that, you just copy the Go binary, you can Google Go install. And it's very simple. You just pull this binary, you extract it, put into your path, and now you have Go installed. Very simple. You can find other guides if you need to do that. And in here, you just cd into directory and you make the binary. And now you have Mythic CLI. I've already done most of the steps, so I'll just, for the sake of brevity, I'll go back to, I already made all this work, so it's right here. So going back to the documentation, once you have Mythic CLI, you need to pull all the containers and start building them. And documentation also explained it. And we also know that .env file right here has all the configuration. is the main file you need to use when configuring Mythic C2, and has all the details. Once you update it, it's gonna update the entire infrastructure. So to pull all the containers, it's very simple. You just use sudo, because my user doesn't have permissions to run Docker. If a user does, you don't even have to use sudo. Specify -e to make sure it has all my environmental variables. And you do Mythic CLI, which you just built, and click start. And it's gonna start pulling all the containers. I've already done that to save us some time, so it might take a while. It took me like 7 minutes, I think, approximately, but this will pull all the containers and will build the actual server that you can use. By default, you can only connect to it via local port. It's not exposed externally, but you can change that, which will look into in further videos once we'll start exploring more of this Mythic architecture and how it works. So once you have ran this command and pulled all the Docker images, as you can see, if I do docker ps-a, oops, all the containers is gonna pull up that like 36 minutes ago. If we go back to overview, you can see all the things it has. Still React for web UI, has some Postgres, other containers to build payloads, but yeah, it's just a bunch of containers. It puts it behind the reverse proxy, and then the reverse proxy connects to all those. I can also do dash status to show you that it's running. Status. So yeah, it just shows you all the containers that you have running. So we have Nginx, backend server, GraphQL console, Jupyter, got RabbitMQ, React, Postgres database, and all those different services. So next step, once we install the main components for the web server to function, what we need to do is install the agents and profiles. And you can think of agents as the actual payloads, like when you use Metasploit to generate the payload. This is very similar. They're hosted on their GitHub. So if we go to the GitHub, they have different ones for Windows, for Linux and macOS. Have some Bloodhound and Ghostwriter integrations, which are other tools we might cover later. And they have more for macOS. And yeah. For this video right now, because my environment is mostly Windows, I'll just install Apollo payloads, but you can install all those if you want, it doesn't really matter. And to do that, you can go into their documentation. And it's very clear here, you just do sudo -e mythic CLI install apollo.git. I already did this as well, so to save us some time, but you run this command, and it's gonna install all the payloads you need. Next step is the actual profiles. Profiles define how the agent will communicate to the server. And there are different ways. You can do it via HTTP, via DNS, via Discord hook, which we'll look into later. Right now, we'll just pull the basic HTTP one, so it's also there at GitHub. If you go to overview, it's a link right here. And here you have different profiles. So we'll pull the basic HTTP one just for now, but you can also have Discord, DNS, as I mentioned, WebSockets, GitHub even. And to pull the HTTP one, you just basically go in here, clone the repo, copy the URL, and do very similar option here. Do install GitHub, and the URL is just copied, and it's going to install all the profiles. This will also take a couple of minutes, but once you have all the components installed, the server itself, agents, and the profiles, now you can actually connect to the Mythic server, which is also on port 7443. But before that, you need the actual username and password. Here's how we can get that. So by default, the username is Mythic admin. It's always default, never changes. And to get the actual password to connect to it, we need to run this command: sudo mythic CLI get mythic admin password. And this is just a randomly generated password that you can use to connect. So let's do that. Because I've already connected, it didn't ask me for it, but it will ask you for a password. And you just enter the one you got from the CLI. So yeah, that's basically the installation. It's not very complex, very much super simple. Let's just look at the payloads and how they're being generated real quick. We'll not run any of those, but just take a look to see how it all works. So if we go into quick usage, here we can see it's going to talk about how I can create the payload and build custom agents and give it custom commands. You just go to the interface, you can expand this one and you go to payloads. I already created one because I was playing with it, but you can go to actions and you do generate a new payload. I'll start fresh. Output type is basically what kind of payload do you want. You can do a shellcode, a service, source, which I'm not sure what source is, but I'll just do a regular Windows exe. Select this, and then we click next. And here, which is I kind of like about Mythic C2, just from the first look at it, you can customize what commands your agent will need, so it doesn't give you everything like most C2s. You can actually choose which ones you need to add. So cat cdcp seem like very good. Execute assembly, very useful one, but you get the idea. You can add all these different commands, or you can add all of those, yes. And I'll also give you some kind of description, like, hey, here's kind of how you use it. But the fact is, it's very customizable. You can remove some stuff to make the payload smaller or make it larger. And once you chose all the commands, you just hit next. And here you select your C2 profiles. That's what we installed before. So since we installed HTTP, we will choose HTTP. And here you also have some specs, like you have your callback port. You can make it a random one, like 8000. Give it a callback host. It's gonna be our local host it's gonna connect to. So we'll just give it our IP 6. Yep, that's our IP. So now it's gonna call back to us on this IP using this port. And there are other configurations you can make, which you can customize a user agent or kill date post URI, which we'll all look into later. And right now we just save it next. And we give the payload a name, follow, give it Mythic C2 8000. I like to specify ports on my payloads because otherwise I forget which port they use. So, and last thing is you can review the configuration, you can adjust build parameters, commands you selected, and HTTP fallback settings as well. Also give it some kind of description. Yes. And next you create the payload. And it's gonna take a minute to build it. And once it's done, it should show up in the payload section, which is right here. Got our new payload, and we can download it. And we'll do file on it. You can see it's Windows executable. And the cool thing about this command control framework is it always generates a new file, which is not detectable by Aristotle or other similar websites. So if I do SHA-256 sound on this payload and give it to Aristotle, you can see it's never seen before because it always generates a new one. Doesn't mean it's gonna bypass antivirus or anything. It's not gonna happen. It's still very detectable. But it's just very cool that always generates a new payload. We'll look into bypasses in later videos, how we can generate payloads that actually bypass something like Defender. But yeah, and it's gonna also start a new listener. So if we do, I think, did it start a new listener? Usually it's supposed to start a new listener on the port specified in the payload. Wonder if because the port is specified is already taken. This is just a test. Because it did for the original one. Yeah, I think because something was already listed on port 8000 as specified, it failed to start a new listener. But usually when you generate a new payload, it's gonna start the listener, which is my original payload, Mythic C2 payload configuration. This one was listening on port 80, so it started at port 80. And if I connect to it, you can see that it's actual listener because it doesn't even accept GET requests. So it says meth not allowed. If I do post, it's gonna tell me servers is not DNA cache, which is not something I write, so that means Mythic actually started it. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. There's a lot to explore in the future videos. For example, the shortcuts, browser scripts, I've heard is a very powerful feature. You can also do searches, and we'll actually look into how we interact with an actual payload once we receive a callback from a system in the future videos. But yeah, as of right now, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the future videos. Take care. Bye.